Okay, while inventory is coming up, the number of homes sold every week, about 530, stays steady, and the number of homes under contract from week to week is coming steadily down. Christopher, what are you talking about? What does it mean, and why do I care? Well, I'll tell you why you should care, particularly if you're looking to buy a home in Utah in the near future. Let's look at the numbers and their nuance. I'm Christopher McGee. I'm the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. I'm affiliated with the Keller Williams Market Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is the numbers and the nuance, and today is the 28th of August, 2023. Every week I'm going through several specific numbers that I pull right off of the MLS, and I just give you that raw data to make decisions with, and then of course I give you the nuance, my interpretation of what's going on by looking at the numbers in the market. By the way, this week I added one number to the numbers that I've been tracking. So it has been 7, now it's 8 numbers. I've been telling you this specific number, but I haven't been tracking it so that we can see what it's doing across time on a graph like I've been doing with everything else. But I went back and filled in all that data so we can look at it over this quarter and the last quarter and the quarter before that from the beginning of this year. Just before we jump into the numbers from this last week so that we know what the market looks like right now, don't forget that if you need help understanding what any of these numbers mean in any more depth, because I just kind of blaze through them from week to week, if you want any more help understanding more solidly what these numbers mean, what it means when they're up and down, you can check out my real estate numbers explained video. That's flagged in the top right of the screen, so you can check that out and get solid on it. Let's look at the numbers. Inventory now stands at 8,984. That's up by 176 from the previous week, continuing our trend up since the beginning of April. Our average days on market is now 46. That's up 2 from the previous week. This is creeping back up from its downward trajectory through the second quarter. It stopped in the third quarter, hovered around 40 days on the market on average for a couple of months, and now for the last month it's been trending up from there. Average list price in the prior week. Now this is the one that I've added and backfilled in the data from the beginning of this year so that we can see what's going on with this number. I think that's important because I think particularly through COVID and the year right before and right after, we had such inflation on our home values that everybody's under the impression now that that's just what's still going on and will eternally go on. And it's important to look at the data so that we're not just informed by an ethereal idea that everybody carries around. Let's look at the data and actually know what's going on. So average list price last week was $623,085. That's up from the previous week by about 27K, but don't worry, that's not at all the rate at which it's going up. In fact, looking at this data point from the beginning of the year shows us its overall upward trajectory, but interestingly, if you look at it from the beginning of quarter 2, it's staying pretty even. It's just barely moving up at all. So the 623,000 average list price that we had last week, and the fact that it came up significantly from the previous week, well, the week before that it was up higher and it came down. So it's doing what numbers do as you track data across time, up and down. But as you look at the overall trajectory since the second quarter's beginning in April, this number's not going hard up and to the right. It's staying pretty stable about where it is right now. Now the average sold price last week was $613,628, which means the difference between average list price and average sold price for last week was in the buyer's favor to the tune of $9,457. That's down from the previous week by about 2K, or in other words, further away from there being no difference between list price and sold price than the previous week. So we're still in a range where this number shows transactions closing slightly in favor of the buyer on average. Homes sold last week came to 499. That's down by 50 from the previous week, and we're still seeing that trend right about where it's been, not moving too far. The number of homes currently under contract comes to 4,756. This is down by about 50 from the previous week. We see this trending gently down since April. This, including inventory, is one of the 2 numbers that I spoke of at the very beginning of this video, and I'll tell you more about why I find this interesting and hopeful for home time buyers in the near future in just a minute here. The number of price reductions that occurred in the previous week came to 953. That's 42 fewer than happened in the previous week, and clearly this has been trending up since the beginning of the second quarter. Finally, as always, the number of listing contracts that were either canceled, expired, or withdrawn in the previous week came to 286. That is down by 50 from the previous week. It's trending just a tiny bit up over the months since the beginning of the second quarter, but in all, we can see that we have an average of about where we're sitting right now, maybe a little bit higher. All right, now what on earth was I talking about at the beginning of this video? Talking about the relationship between our rising inventory, our steady homes sold per week, and our declining number of homes under contract. Well, the current story between those data points and the relationship between them essentially comes to this. As long as this continues to happen, as long as inventory continues to rise, at the same time we have a steady number of homes sold, at the same time we have a steady decline in the number of homes that are under contract, what that means is from week to week, slowly but surely, buyers have more choices, more homes to look at when you're on the market for a home. Furthermore, one of the effects of having more options as a buyer on the market is that we will expect to see days on market come steadily up, which is exactly what we've been seeing for the last 5 months, which is exactly in line with, sorry, not the last 5 months, but the last 5 weeks. And that is exactly in line with the rate at which and the time at which the decline in number of homes under contract began up until now. All this in turn keeps average sold price under average list price, which is what we've been seeing consistently. And all of this keeps inflationary pressure off our housing market. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to include and backfill in all that data on home prices in Utah over time, because I wanted to show you clearly with the data that the way the Utah housing market has been going is not showing us that our inflation is continuing to fly up. It's barely creeping up. It's really pretty stable, and perhaps soon going the other way if the trends currently in force continue in force. So if you're a home buyer or plan to be a home buyer in the next quarter or two in Utah, I think it's good for you to know that Utah's housing market has been cooling and that you shouldn't expect to have to pay 2 or 3 quarters worth of inflation on your next home. Now, if you're a near future seller in Utah and you're hearing this, don't worry. I'm not saying the housing market is crashing. I'm saying it's cooling. And that's a good thing, particularly here in Utah, where housing prices have inflated as high as they have. But the data that would show us a crash is on the way, like a plummeting jobs market, really low credit scores, really high mortgage application data, with a high amount of very recent housing inflation, that data just doesn't exist. That's not what the data shows us right now. This is Utah. Everyone paying attention to such things knows that there are a lot of people who continue to want to live here, that our economy is strong, that our jobs market is strong, that our housing market is strong. In fact, in the midst of this cooling market, one of the things that I brought up in this video that makes it so that you know we're not crashing, and that if you were to sell your house in the near future, you're not likely to be having to give the buyer everything they want. They won't be able to totally lowball you on your house with an offer, is the fact that homes sold every week continues steady. That's not coming down, right? And we continue to see that the difference between list price and sold price isn't a big number. I mean, if on average homes listed are sold at roughly 9 to 10K less than what they're listed at, that is something that we can move forward with. I think if you're a seller, that doesn't hurt very much. All right, so in conclusion, if you or anybody you know is looking to sell or buy a home in the near future here in Utah, I hope you'll reach out to me. I'd love to help. Whoever helps you should be highly communicative, should know how to make this journey about you and not about them. And I think they should know the market, the data like the back of their hand. They should know the numbers, and they should know the nuance that they tell. And of course, if you'd like to stay well updated on the Utah housing market, as well educated as I am on it, then just feel free to hit the subscribe. You can be solid on what is going on in Utah's housing market from week to week like me. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.